Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves.
Glad to be here.
So, imagine waking up and just telling your phone to summarize yesterday's chaotic meetings.
Right, just completely hands-free.
Yeah, exactly. You tell it to draft 3 replies, book a flight for next Tuesday, and you do all of this without opening a single app or tapping a single keyboard.
Which is pretty wild to think about.
It is, and that is the exact Siri overhaul Apple is teasing right now as they head into their developer conference. But, the real story isn't just the convenience of hands-free booking.
No, not at all.
The real story is the billions of dollars trading hands behind the scenes to make that scenario an actual reality. So today, we are taking this headline and outlining exactly what a smarter Siri means for AI stocks, iPhone demand, and all the various market players.
Yeah, and I think the core question we need to state calmly right at the top is this: can Siri actually become a serious artificial intelligence product?
That's the billion-dollar question, right?
Exactly, because when we look at Apple's position in this race, we really have to recognize their distinct advantage. I mean, unlike Nvidia, Microsoft, or Google, Apple is not trying to win by building the absolute largest data center models.
Or selling raw computing power.
Right, exactly. Apple's edge is sheer distribution. Siri is already placed across, hundreds of millions of iPhones, iPads, Macs, and watches globally.
It's everywhere.
It is. So our objective here is to map out the specific winners and losers if Apple integrates chat capabilities, personal context, and deeper application commands directly into the operating system.
And if you're listening right now, just know that this is a pragmatic, level-headed look at the market. We are strictly breaking down the headline into tangible winners and losers based on the hardware and software reality.
Yeah, no exaggerations here.
None. We are just identifying who benefits and who faces pressure. So let's bypass the broad market speculation and go straight to the most immediate beneficiary.
The hardware makers.
Right. Those are the companies that actually build and power the physical hardware sitting in your pocket right now.
And that is really the logical starting point. I mean, if Siri becomes a more capable voice assistant, the market assesses Apple as an artificial intelligence platform rather than just a consumer hardware manufacturer.
Which is a totally different valuation.
Completely. A better voice assistant drives iPhone retention and accelerates future upgrade cycles. And the reason comes down to hard physical limitations.
How so?
Well, to run advanced models locally on a device, it requires specialized processing cores, specifically neural processing units. The best features, the ones that process requests instantly and understand complex natural language, they require entirely newer chips.
Especially if you want to do it without draining your battery in 30 minutes.
Exactly. The old hardware just can't handle it.
I look at this hardware upgrade cycle like the frustration of trying to run a modern video game on a 10-year-old laptop.
Oh, yeah. That never goes well.
No, it's terrible. You hold on to a device for years because it works fine for making calls and sending text messages, but then a completely new software update drops.
And everyone around you is using it.
Right. You try to use the new voice features your friends are using, and your phone stutters, it overheats, and the battery just dies.
Which forces your hand.
Exactly. It forces you to finally buy a new device just to access the basic new tools everyone else is using seamlessly.
And that consumer frustration is the exact mechanism that drives the hardware upgrade cycle. Most consumers do not care about the technical specifications of a neural engine on a piece of silicon.
They really don't.
They only care if their phone cannot summarize a long email thread while their coworker's phone does it instantly. When tens of millions of people buy new devices to get those specific features, it immediately benefits a core group of companies supplying the internal components.
So let's break down the exact players in this hardware category. First is obviously Apple, ticker AAPL. Then we have Qualcomm, ticker QCOM, and Broadcom, ticker AVGO. When we look at Qualcomm and Broadcom, we are talking about the connectivity components inside the device. Why are those so critical for a voice assistant?
Well, even though Apple designs its own main processors, they still rely on specialized partners for modems and radio frequency components. Voice assistants rely heavily on hybrid processing.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning part of the thinking happens right there on the phone, but the heavier logic gets pinged to a cloud server. So if a device needs to constantly pull data from a remote server to augment what Siri is doing locally, it needs top-tier, low-latency connectivity.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask Siri a complex question and it takes 6 seconds to answer because of a poor cellular connection, the feature is useless.
They just give up.
Exactly. So Qualcomm and Broadcom supply the critical hardware that allows the iPhone to communicate with cellular networks and Wi-Fi routers with near zero latency. As the hardware upgrade cycle accelerates, their component sales naturally climb alongside Apple's.
But the need for external processing leads us straight into the next group of winners. Because for Apple's hardware to run these features perfectly, it needs external cloud partners.
Right. Apple does not need to spend billions building the most powerful, all-knowing language model entirely in-house.
Why reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly. The reporting suggests that developers and users might be able to choose from outside models inside the Apple ecosystem. We are talking about integrating external models like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google Gemini.
So they just plug right in.
Yes. By allowing external companies to plug their models into iOS, Apple becomes a highly lucrative distribution layer.
Okay, but let me push back on that setup for a second. If Apple just outsources the actual artificial intelligence to Gemini or OpenAI, aren't they just acting as a glorified middleman?
Yeah.
I mean, how does that make them an actual innovator?
You could certainly call them a middleman, sure, but in the technology sector, the middleman who owns the glass screen holds all the leverage.
That's a good point.
Think of Apple like a commercial real estate developer. Apple isn't trying to build the best furniture, which in this case are the AI models. They own the apartment building, which is the iPhone.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Right. It does not matter if you prefer an OpenAI couch or a Google Gemini dining table. Apple controls the doorway, the lease, and the rent.
They hold the keys.
Exactly. Even if the heavy computational lifting happens in a third-party data center, Apple dictates exactly how the user interacts with it. They control the user interface, the privacy safeguards, and most importantly, the billing relationship.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
They own the distribution, so they make the rules. Now that covers the cloud side. But we also have to look at edge computing.
Yeah, edge AI is crucial here.
Right. Edge AI meaning the intelligence processing happens directly on the device itself, right in your hand, rather than sending the data to a server hundreds of miles away.
And processing data on the device requires a totally different architectural setup compared to building massive server farms. It requires incredibly fast memory to store the language model temporarily while it analyzes your text.
And it probably gets hot, right?
Very. It requires highly efficient silicon to run the matrix calculations without generating too much heat.
Okay, so let's lay out the tickers for these distribution and infrastructure winners. For the cloud distribution partners, we are looking at Alphabet, ticker GOOGL, Microsoft, ticker MSFT, Amazon, ticker AMZN.
And for the hardware side?
For the edge AI processing chips and memory, the winners are Nvidia, ticker NVDA, Advanced Micro Devices, ticker AMMD, and Micron, ticker MU.
And, Micron is really the prime example to focus on for edge AI. People often confuse storage with memory.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Storage is like your garage. It holds your photos and apps long term. Memory, or RAM, is your active workbench.
So you need a bigger workbench.
Exactly. Edge computing is incredibly memory intensive because these language models are massive and they need a giant workbench to operate instantly.
And Apple usually skimps on that, don't they?
They do. Historically, Apple has kept the active RAM on iPhones relatively low compared to competitors, but as they push complex tasks directly to the device, the baseline memory requirements for every new iPhone and Mac will have to increase substantially.
Got it.
And that architectural necessity directly benefits memory suppliers like Micron.
All right, so we have mapped out the hardware makers, the connectivity suppliers, and the memory builders. But there is a massive flip side to this localized power.
The losers.
Yes, because if my phone handles all these requests right on the device, I am suddenly bypassing the open web entirely. That transitions us to the software categories facing pressure from a fully integrated Siri.
And the most complex and delicate situation here belongs to the search platform, specifically Alphabet.
Why is it so delicate for them?
Well, Alphabet wins if their Gemini model gains distribution as a plugin on Apple devices. That much is clear. However, they face immense pressure if Siri becomes the new preferred front door for search-like queries.
Walk us through the mechanics of that pressure. How does an upgraded voice assistant actually threaten a dominant search engine?
Right now, think about what you do if you want to book a flight to Chicago, find a pasta recipe, or summarize a news article. You unlock your phone, open a web browser, and type a query into a search engine.
Right.
The search engine provides a list of links, and critically, it displays highly targeted advertisements. That is the core of their revenue.
Because you actually have to look at the page.
Exactly. But if a user simply asks Siri out loud to find a flight, and Siri executes the booking through a background application without ever opening a web browser, the entire user journey changes.
You never see the ads.
Precisely. The traffic bypasses traditional search engines completely. Fewer searches mean fewer opportunities to display sponsored links and ads.
Man, this highlights a complete paradox for Alphabet. Consider what happens to a business model when a single company is simultaneously a crucial partner and an existential threat to your core revenue stream.
It's a tough spot to be in.
You, as the listener, can see the tension playing out here. Alphabet desperately wants the distribution for its Gemini models to stay relevant, but it cannot afford to lose the direct user interaction that drives search advertising.
And that specific tension is central to the market's assessment of this developer conference. The balance between being a back-end infrastructure provider and maintaining actual consumer attention is super fragile.
Google pays a lot of money for that attention, too.
They do. Google pays Apple billions of dollars annually just to be the default search engine on the Safari browser.
Wow.
But if Safari usage drops because Siri handles the answers natively, the value of that default placement plummets. And it is not just search platforms facing this exact dynamic. Standalone productivity and task applications face similar immediate pressure.
This brings up something I experienced directly. I currently pay about $15 a month for a specialized transcription application, just so I don't have to take manual notes during meetings.
And you're probably going to cancel it.
Oh, absolutely. If Apple suddenly bakes flawless transcription and summarization directly into the native Voice Memos app for free, I am canceling that third-party subscription in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Multiply my $15 by millions of users, and you see why third-party developers are sweating right now. But let me ask you about the enterprise side. I can see how a simple note app gets replaced, but how does Siri actually threaten a massive company like DocuSign? Signing legal documents seems way above a voice assistant's pay grade.
It sounds counterintuitive, I know, but it comes down to how modern operating systems route information behind the scenes. In the technology industry, there is a historical term called getting Sherlocked.
Sherlocked.
Yeah. In the late 90s, Apple introduced an internal search tool called Sherlock, which instantly made a popular third-party search app called Watson obsolete. Whenever Apple integrates a feature natively into the operating system, the third-party apps get Sherlocked.
Oh, I see.
So regarding DocuSign, Siri isn't visually signing the document like you would with a pen. Instead, Apple creates deep application programming interfaces, or APIs.
Right.
A user simply says, Siri, sign the lease agreement in my email and send it back. Siri uses the API to pull the PDF, verifies your identity instantly using Face ID, appends your cryptographic signature stored securely in the Apple keychain, and drafts the reply email.
Wow. All in the background.
Exactly. The user never even opens a third-party app.
So the standalone platforms lose their user engagement because the operating system simply handles the routing of tasks in the background.
Correct.
Let's list the specific tickers facing pressure here. In the search and discovery category, we have Alphabet, ticker GOOGL, Meta Platforms, ticker META, and Reddit, ticker RDDT.
And the productivity ones.
For the productivity applications, the ones that could get Sherlocked or become redundant, we are looking at DocuSign, ticker DOC, Ubox, ticker BOX, Dropbox, ticker DBX, and Zoom, ticker ZM.
And the reason is that DocuSign, Box, and Dropbox all rely heavily on users actively opening their applications, navigating their interfaces, and paying for storage or specialized management.
They need you in the app.
Right. But if local storage on an iPhone seamlessly categorizes and retrieves files through simple voice commands, the friction of managing files disappears entirely.
Makes sense.
Those standalone platforms lose the daily engagement that justifies their subscription costs to enterprise managers.
Okay, moving outward from the specific applications, we have to examine the broader hardware market. If Apple normalizes these tools, how does the rest of the PC and smartphone market react? This brings us to our final category of losers competing ecosystem sentiment.
Yeah, because over the past 2 years, Google and Microsoft really controlled the narrative. They were perceived as the unquestioned leaders in consumer artificial intelligence.
Microsoft moved super fast.
They did. Microsoft rolled out Copilot features quickly. integrating chat directly into their search engines and operating systems. They aggressively pushed the marketing narrative that Windows PCs and Android devices were the premier platforms for this new technology.
And Apple was just quiet.
Completely. During that entire period, Apple was largely viewed by the market as lagging behind, staying quiet while competitors launched product after product.
But if Apple delivers a practical, working upgrade to Siri that everyday people actually use, the market reassesses that entire narrative.
Yes, the sentiment alters completely. If Siri works flawlessly, seamlessly handling complex tasks across your iPhone, your iPad, and your Mac, it changes the consumer perception around the Android and Windows ecosystems.
They lose that edge.
The marketing advantage those competing platforms held could neutralize overnight. It proves a historical pattern for Apple being first to market is rarely as valuable as having a massive, captive audience ready to adopt a highly refined feature.
People will just wait for Apple to do it.
Right. Consumers often wait for the Apple version because it is heavily branded as more private, secure, and user-friendly.
Let's list the tickers tied to this competing ecosystem sentiment. Alphabet, ticker GOOGL, Microsoft, ticker MSFTHP, ticker HPQ, and Dell Technologies, ticker DELL.
Those last two are crucial.
Yeah, HP and Dell are directly tied to the Windows PC ecosystem. If Apple's Mac lineup suddenly boasts superior native integration that actually helps students and professionals, those PC manufacturers face much stronger headwinds in their hardware sales.
Because hardware sales are driven entirely by consumer perception of capability. If a consumer believes a Mac handles their daily workflows better because the voice assistant actually functions as a digital secretary, they will switch ecosystems.
It's that simple.
It is. If Apple successfully brands its environment as the most private and integrated way to use these tools, it forces companies like HP, Dell, and Microsoft to spend drastically more on marketing and development just to maintain their current market share.
So to wrap up today's headline regarding Apple's Siri evolution, we see a clear dividing line based on the reporting. On one side, the winners include the hardware manufacturers, edge processing chip makers, and cloud partners.
They're the ones building the foundation.
Right. They benefit directly from device upgrade cycles and highly lucrative new distribution channels. On the other side, the losers include standalone productivity apps, search traffic gatekeepers, and competing ecosystem manufacturers.
Yeah, they're facing the heat.
They all face immense pressure from an operating system that handles tasks natively and keeps users away from the open web.
Before we conclude, consider this compelling scenario. For decades, graphical user interfaces, screens, icons, and mice have dictated how software is designed.
Yeah, point and click.
Exactly. But if voice assistants successfully become the default, frictionless way you interact with your device, how does that alter the entire future of software engineering?
That's a great question.
When the screen becomes secondary to the voice command, every application developer must rethink how they deliver value to a user who never actually looks at their interface.
This is not financial advice or buy or sell recommendations. This is purely the opinion of the author.